Have you ever heard the saying, smile at a stranger and you just might make a friend? Well, sometimes a stranger might just be your very own father. Today on rLounge, be careful who you smile at. They just might latch on and never let you go, or never leave your apartment. Up first, a father's missed opportunity. My homeless dad used me in his money scheme, so I took it all. Okay, so the homeless guy is technically my dad. My dad was only in my life actively from ages 0 to 7, and in that time, gave me a crap ton of trauma. He was a hardcore alcoholic, manipulator, and a lot of other things I can't say. My mom, being the bad A that she is, left him, and for a short bit, we did weekends at his place. It was a never-ending cycle of him drinking, being a piece of crap, and then buying us over with animals and gifts. After getting several DUIs, unpaid child support, and a few child endangerment cases, he up and left to avoid going to jail. Like, disappeared, left the animals locked in the house that he abandoned, and shut off his phone. Every few months or so, he would randomly show up at my school drunk and crying with gifts in hand, or leave notes on our door. My school literally had to implement a safety plan because my mom was scared he would take me. That stopped, and didn't hear from him for about 13 years. When I was 20, he messaged me on Facebook saying he would love to get to know me and asking if there's anything I need financially. My initial response, sick to my stomach and crying, quickly turned to anger. I was broke and really could use money, and I mean, he owed, right? I told him I would meet and needed money for rent. When I saw him, my stomach turned. He looked like the crazy guy you see on the side of the road begging for money. He really didn't make much sense, just talked a lot of crap about my mom, saying she was a liar and turned us against him and mumbling nonsense. Apparently, his brother, my uncle, that I have never had a relationship with, would no longer give him money, but would wire transfer him money from me. He told his brother I needed $1,500 and told me he would take $500 to give me $1,000. His crappy burner phone ran out of minutes, so one of the calls to his brother was made from my phone. Of course, he didn't have an ID or anything, so I would need to pick it up with him. When someone wires you money, they get a code, then give you the code, and voila, you get the money. My dad wouldn't give me the code until we were physically at the place to pick it up, which we planned to do the following morning. The next morning, I decided to text my uncle since I now had his number and asked him directly for the code. I got the code, picked up the money, and blocked my piece of crap dad. He made sure to leave me some deranged voicemails about how big of a piece of crap I am. He pretty much used me to get money from his brother. If he really wanted to be in my life, he would have taken the proper steps to do so and change, but he never did. Not denying what I did wasn't crappy, but also F my dad. Edit. My uncle does well financially and obviously was fine with sending me money, which at the time I definitely needed. I saw a few comments saying I helped scam my uncle, which I just didn't get. He thought he was sending money to go to me and help me out. The money went to me and helped me out. And of course, I thanked him. Edit. Side note, since the people were asking, the animals were rescued as soon as we realized he was gone. Poor babies suffered a lot from him and were also alone for days, but we're alive. Last edit, hopefully. It's a wire transfer, not like Venmo or Zelle, it's Western Union. Unless they have changed how you do it now, this is how it's done. Let's see what the community thinks. The first thought says, don't worry about it. Your uncle would only send money for you. You just honored his wishes in taking the money. There's no doubt it's better in your hands than your dad's. The next person says, agreed. Uncle never intended for your dad to get the money, and your dad only reached out to you so he could manipulate the situation for $1. Another person says, what you did wasn't crappy. It was very smart. Your dad bailed on his family. There's no amount of money that can make up for that. My advice would be to just find it in you to understand that your dad is a turd human and you will be best off to cut contact. Walk away from the table while he just witnessed your true feelings about him. Also, establish a relationship with the uncle who has money. He sounds like someone who actually cares about your well-being. If he truly is a good guy, then listen very carefully to his advice. Another person wants to say, please at least get to know this uncle some. It sounds like he supports your life and I'm sure he'd be happy to get to know you. Let it be awkward. Let it be sad. Bring a friend with you trust even. This man is willfully giving you money and has no obligation to. Granted, he could be a creep, but I feel like he would be pretty cool to know. One more commenter says, better call your uncle and warn him too. I'm glad you got the money, but do beware if your bio father knows where you work or live. He may keep harassing you for the money. Just keep a lookout. Don't have to be paranoid. He won't be able to do any clever schemes on you. Yeah, technically you didn't do your uncle wrong because he thought all the money was going to you. I'm thinking the only person you really have to answer to is yourself and if you can sleep well at night after your actions towards your dad. Granted, you have one heck of a history with him, but just be careful not to inadvertently act like the very person you hate. Moreover, it was really nice of your uncle to help you out like that, but maybe avoid lying by omission moving forward. It seems hypocritical to do that to a guy who seems to genuinely want to help. What are your thoughts? Next up, try to love thy neighbor or get them arrested. Got neighbor evicted over a parking spot. I live in a small complex with a communal parking lot, no reserved spaces. On my wife's birthday, she invited a friend over to go out celebrating. When her friend showed up, there happened to be a tree that had fallen in the lot and blocked half of it while it was being cleared. The only spot she could get to was one of the 2 disabled spots in the lot. Not a problem, since she had a valid handicap tag, which was displayed. She asked when she came in if it was okay for her to park there, and I said it was fine since she was legally allowed to, and the only person in the complex to use the spots could park in the next spot. We got ready to go out, and when I went to get my car, I noticed the car that usually parked in the disabled spot had parked directly behind our friend, blocking her in, and left the other disabled spot empty. I told the apartment manager to please have her move her car by morning. We went out for a nice night of clubbing and got home at 3 a.m. The car was still blocked in and the other disabled spot was still empty. So I called the police. They showed up, looked at the way she was parked, and started laughing. "Why didn't she just park in the next spot?" I told him I didn't know, and he said, at 3:30 a.m., "Well, let's go wake her up and ask." He did that cop knock on her door to wake her up and told her to move her car. She began yelling at him, "That's my spot, and I'm teaching someone a lesson." He explained to her that it is not her personal spot, and there was another one right next to it, even closer to her door. He told her to move the car immediately, and to think about what she was going to say next, because she was close to going to jail. She moved the car and never spoke to me again, but she had also yelled at the apartment manager when he asked her to move it. Turns out she was behind in her rent, so they started eviction proceedings. Manager then paid me $150 to take her boxed up stuff and throw it in the building's dirty basement. First reaction to this story: if you're already late on your rent, it's generally a bad idea to draw more attention to yourself. Another person wanted to say, "My complex just started reserved spots. It's optional. We can pay $25 a month for a reserved spot. I have a spot that I liked. It's one of the only shady spaces in the lot, which is important because I live in a place that is usually about 3 degrees warmer than the core of the sun. Every time I'd leave, someone would be in it when I came back. I'd be annoyed, but I can't really be, because we didn't have assigned or reserved spots. The day they started reserved spots, I walked into the office and plunked down my $25. Now it has a nice big yellow reserved sign on it. If anyone parks in it, I can text the tow company and they'll have it gone ASAP. Someone parked in my roommate's spot. The tow company showed up in 15 minutes and had that thing out of there in about 30 seconds. Yikes. Exactly why draw attention to yourself if you're already in hot water? What was this person thinking? She legitimately thought she was doing the right thing by teaching your friend a lesson. And the fact that she felt entitled enough to feel as though she was in a position to teach a lesson? How embarrassing. Has someone tried to teach you a lesson, but it backfired? Let us know in the comments below. Next up, a sobering experience for a spoiled brat. Guy who thought my apartment was a free-for-all gets sobered up. This happened in my early 20s when I didn't really have life figured out yet and didn't know how to deal with moochers and fake friends until after this incident. I was living alone in a relatively nice apartment. I made some random friends at the time. I had parties at my place, but they were never parties, just a get-together with some drinks, smokes, and maybe movies. Of course, a bunch of weed at the time, but everyone was cool, except Guy. Guy was the one who always drank too much and smoked too much. A couple months after I met him, he'd call me on Fridays so him and some other friends can come over, people I never met. This soon became a daily thing, but with new people who I didn't know, because he needed a place to smoke that wasn't his apartment because he had a roommate. And then he started to show up at my door after his work every day, without a text or call. I told him plenty of times to call me first or have the courtesy to text me. He didn't seem to grasp that concept. I got sick of him taking advantage like that and stopped hanging out. Then one day he keeps calling me over and over. I ignore it, but I hear banging on my door after a while. I open it, and he's standing there with another dude I don't know. He has a bag in his hand filled with weed, various drugs and bongs, etc. He tells me, not asks, to hold on to this bag because his parents are visiting his apartment and he can't have that stuff there. I was beyond pissed off, but I said okay because I just wanted to get rid of them, and they left. A few hours later, I decided that no, it's not okay. He is taking advantage of me and my place, and I didn't want this to be a recurring thing. So I called him a bunch of times, but he didn't answer. I wanted to give it back to him and say I'm going out of town on an emergency and won't be back for a week, so he'd take his crap back without asking questions. He never answers, so I took that bag to his apartment complex and gave it to the security guy with a note on it, saying I'm returning what belongs to Guy, and he delivered it to the apartment. A few days later, my other friend was talking about Guy and how he moved back to his hometown. I asked why. He said his parents found all that crap that he was trying to hide at my place and almost disowned him. They were paying for his apartment and lifestyle, etc. He got all his privileges taken away, no car, no friends, and he was stuck in his old room in his crappy small town until he found a job there or went back to school. Good riddance. Yikes. This guy was totally taking advantage of you and his parents, and likely everyone in his life. I guess now you've learned not to let strangers in your house. You give someone an inch and they take a mile. I'm sorry you had to learn this the hard way, OP, but that was a huge move to give it to the security guy. Mic drop. Have you ever been in OP's shoes? What did you do? Share your stories in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, we want to hear it. See you next time.